What is happening, guys? So today we're going to be talking about the SolaFideDesigns ATC system, and I'm super excited about it because we were selling an American-made spindle, but we're kind of going back to our old ways. I don't know if you guys have followed me or not for a while, but I was the first to post a plug-and-play system for the Onefinity Elite. We're going to do pre-orders, and because of that video, I had a US manufacturer reach out to me asking me if I would use his spindles. We said yes, and we started using them. Don't get me wrong, they're great spindles, but because they are American made, the cost is just so great. And then the power cables and so on were different than my original spindles. And so there was no real upgrade path or anything like that. So what we've decided to do is roll it back and go back to my original ATC system, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So now let's talk about the SolaFideDesigns VFD box. So this is what our VFD box looks like. It is a GS drive, which is essentially a rebranded Delta MS300. This is a really good drive. This drive is actually UL rated, which you don't really see that in VFD drives. And it's used on a lot of industrial machines, up there with Hitachi, Mitsubishi, and there's a couple other brands, I can't remember the name of the VFD drives off the top of my head, that are up there that are used on industrial machines. So this is a really good VFD drive. We have a master on-off switch. Everything is mounted to an aluminum backplate. Everything is grounded to that. On the bottom here, we have our ATC port, we have our Masso controller port, we have an IoT relay. This connector will not be here. This will just be the spindle power cable. Will run out the bottom here. My model is different for me because I do a lot of testing. And then we have fuse boxes right here that if there's a catastrophic failure, the fuses will blow. VFD drives have a ton of safety features in them as it is, and so it'd probably be pretty hard to blow those fuses for a catastrophic issue. Our master on-off switch, and then 14 foot of the main power cable, if I didn't say that already. And then this does have a cleat on the back here. There will be a bracket you mount to the wall. This will clip in, and there'll be a clip that goes over top so it all locks into place. This right here will not be in the production model either. This is a manual override switch, and it is extremely unsafe to have a manual override switch when you have an ATC system. And I know some people are gonna be like, well, wait, Nick, why are you getting rid of the manual override? What if I wanna drive a machine around and just turn the spindle on? You can still do that very simply. All you gotta do is go to the MDI screen on any controller once you have this spindle hooked up to it. And then all you gotta do is type in M03S, whatever 1000 RPMs you wanna run it at. And then you can still drive it around manually. The problem with the manual override switch is that you cannot lock the VFD drive out of being controlled by the controller when you have an ATC system. And the reason for that is you will have a massive crash into some type of tool rack, and it'll just continue to spin non-stop and destroy everything. So the controller has to be able to communicate with the system, and the safest way to do that is to make sure that you don't even have a way to put it in a manual mode. Now moving on to the actual ATC box. There's really not very much special about this box. It does a couple things. We have two regulators. This regulator at the top is very important though. It is going to be controlling the blast pressure. So when your jaws open up, it's going to unclamp the tool, and as it's moving to the new tool, it's going to be blasting the new tool and old tool with a blast of compressed air. And that compressed air is going to be blasting down on top of this, cleaning off any debris. You want to be able to control that PSI. This right here is going to mate inside the spindle. So if you're trying to clamp this down and you're blasting with a ton of PSI, it's going to have like an air pocket to where it's not going to allow it to fully clamp. So we need to be able to control that PSI pressure. Because if we have too much blast on it, you're going to have to push down this really hard for it to get it to clamp correctly. And so that blast pressure needs to be about 25 to 30 PSI. It'll still clean off all the debris, but then it's going to allow it to clamp it a lot easier, and you won't have any clamping issues. Too high of blast pressure can cause clamping issues, and it can make it unsafe, in my opinion. So those jaws are open, it's going to be puffing air on it, it's going to come down, grab it, and then it's going to pull it up, and the air goes away, and it's in the system. But we need to be able to control that PSI, and that is this top regulator, and it is extremely important to have this PSI at 30 PSI to 25. The bottom one is your case pressure. It's not as important. If you're the type of person who somehow retrofitted your Onefinity Elite with a flood coolant system, then you're going to want case pressure. If you are cutting tons of carbon fiber, you're going to want case pressure. But if you're not And for MDF, you might want a little bit of case pressure as well, because MDF is some nasty stuff and it can get up into the spindle. Case pressure though is going to actually put a positive pressure on the inside of the spindle, and it's not going to allow contaminants to be able to work its way up into the spindle and get into the bearing, because it's giving you that positive pressure and it's pushing everything out. Most of the time I leave mine off. On the bottom here, we are going to have 4 airline ports. One is going to be blast, one is going to be case pressure, drawbar, and lock. So the drawbar will get roughly 95 to 100 psi pushed to it, which will open the jaws. When that happens, the blast is going to be kicking on, which is going to be cleaning off the tool as it grabs it, like we just talked about. Then we have case pressure, which will always be on, if you choose it to be. And then we have lock. So what lock is going to do, when the machine tells it to open, it's going to open. When it tells it to close, it's going to put pressure to the PSI to lock, and lock is going to shove it back up into the lock position. And that's the nice thing about this too, is because this will always have PSI to that lock, but not allowing that tool to come out even if the spring gave out or whatever, because it's going to be having the PSI behind it to actually force it back up and lock it. On the back side here, we have our compressor input port. So this is where you're going to plug in your air compressor. You're going to feed, like I said, 95 to 100 psi to this port right here. And then we have a cable that's going to run to the VFD drive. If this is not hooked up with the VFD, you cannot unclamp it manually or anything. It will not allow you to actually unclamp it. So safety feature that I wanted to add in to make sure that this had to be plugged into the VFD drive, and the VFD drive had to be on before the solenoid would be able to actually fire. The controller. This is going to go to your Masso controller, Acorn, or whatever controller you're using, and this is going to be feeding the circuits to actually open and do the tool changes from the controller. And then we have a manual switch here. So we have a switch like this, and you're actually going to be able to either plug it into the controller of Masso, which I would recommend. It's just an extra layer of safety, or you'll be able to plug it into the actual manual switch right there and just press it. Now, there are some safety features in this. If the spindle is spinning at any type of RPM other than 0, it's not going to allow it to be able to unclamp. That is what that VFD drive cable is for. We're actually running this into the VFD drive so that way they can communicate with each other, and it will not unclamp if that drive is at anything other than 0. Actually, it has to be saying that the spindle's not even on. So if the spindle was on, if it was sending power at all, and it was telling it to even run at 0 RPMs, it still wouldn't allow you to open it. It has to be a signal that's completely off, and it's at 0 RPMs. For it to be able to allow to open the jaws. ATC systems not done correctly can be extremely dangerous, and the last thing you want is a tool to be ejected from the ATC system while it's moving. There's a lot more that goes into ATC systems than people think or know. I've been doing this stuff for a while now, and this isn't my first ATC, and I've been using ATC systems for a long time. I've used to set up machines and do other things like that as well, and so the ATC system is no new thing to me. With that being said, that's essentially this box. Now let's talk about the automatic tool changing portion of the thing. I will go through a step-by-step videos for installation of this kit, and also if you do buy a full kit from me or an upgrade path, then I will give you my phone number and we can do a over the phone installation, or we can do a video chat over Facebook or something and do an installation that way as well. If you buy a kit from us, I'll be more than happy to walk you through the process and how to set everything up and make sure it's all working correctly. So with that being said, let's go ahead and actually take a look at the spindle really quick since we have it here on the screen. So the spindle is an ISO 20. It is 2.2 kilowatts, it's 80 millimeter. And as you can see, the IGA shielded cable wire right here, high flex, and then you can see the power connector that we have going into it. And then we have 2 sensor cables running into the Masso controller, and you'll get 20 feet of that cable as well. But I just wanted to point out the connectors we're using. So this will be the sensor cable, and then these is the actual power cable. The sensor cable is going to let the Masso know if there is a tool in the system or not in the system, and that's one of the safety features that's also built into this, with it being locked out if the spindle is running at any RPM. And you can see that right here with any switch. So if I have just this little switch hooked up that's directly hooked to the box. It comes out. But then I also have the one that I have plugged into the Masso right now. It works. So now if I start the spindle and I press the button, nothing. And if I press the button, nothing. So it locks it completely out, so there's no possible way to eject the tool while it is spinning. So let's talk about the spindle sensors. So in here I have my tools set up. I have the tool rack that's going to be coming with the kit. So you're going to get 4 ISO 20s, and you'll also get 4 of those holders there, and they connect together and they allow it to work with my dust boot. I highly recommend you run it across the back of the machine. And obviously if you want more tool racks or more ISO 20 tool holders, you'll be able to order those as well with the kits. But I recommend running it across the back because that's usually the furthest away from debris where you're cutting at. And the spacing I have set up on there is it also allows for those, for my dust boots to all work. The Nighthawk, the Raptor, all those dust boots work. And these are also spring loaded. I don't know if you can see it with my arm in the way, but it's spring loaded, so in a sense it helps with getting the tool to clamp correctly. You'll be able to put pressure on it, and then it won't actually deform your bed or whatever, or put too much pressure on the spindle Z-mount. So let's go ahead and do a tool change. Let's go, we have tool 1 in it right now. Let's go T2 M6, and that's going to prompt Masso to run a tool change. And so what this is going to do is it's just going to change the tools. Now, let's get rid of tool 1. What prompts us to do a tool change to tool 1? It's going to go ahead and let go of tool 2. And in a few seconds, you will see an error on the Masso screen. Tool and spindle not detected. So if you have like no error or anything like that, it's going to be super helpful. It's going to be like, oh, hey, look, something's wrong, it's not working. We're just missing the tool from the rack. The whole machine is going to go to a pause. We're going to hit OK. We're going to go to jog, and we're going to slide the machine up. Now, the thing is, though, is it says tool 2. So it thinks that it still has this tool in it. So we have to manually insert this tool. We have to do the manual insert of that tool before we try to redo the tool change, because if we leave it in the rack, that jaw isn't going to open until it thinks it's in the rack. So what would happen is it's going to go down and it's going to stay like this, and then it's going to shove down on it and shove it into the table more, and then it'll open up and pop into play. And I'll show you that kind of right now with this. Let me jog this thing up forward. So right now I don't have the spindle jaw open, it's closed. And if you see me put my finger there, it kind of pushed down quite a bit. And so really with it open, it's going to push up and then just move up. So if that jaw isn't open, it's going to come down on that rack. It's going to push into it like that, but it's going to push down farther than it normally would, and then it's going to shove it down even farther, trying to get it in to actually allow that jaw to open up. So if you ever get an error like that where it says tool 2, you need to make sure you manually reinsert tool 2 before you attempt to do a tool change again. Another thing we can do is that we can drain the system of the air. So right now, I don't know if you can hear that clicking noise or not, but that's trying to open the thing. So let's go ahead and go, okay, let's grab tool 1 again, hit run, and it's going to go try to drop that tool off. But it's just going to stay there, because it realizes it's not dropping the tool, and we're going to get another error on the screen. Drawbar, unclamp, error. In other words, it's not unclamping. Okay, so then we can move up, Still going to have tool 2 in there, and then all we have to do is turn the air on and then rerun the tool change. So that's one thing I do like about sensors. They do actually work really well with Masso, and so I have the VFD drive, the ATC box, and the controller communicating, but then we also have the sensors in the spindle communicating, and it's really nice because it just adds a whole extra layer of safety to the whole thing. Now that we've seen everything working and all the safety features and talked about, let's talk about the warranty that you're going to get with your kit. You will get a 1-year warranty through me, and that will include a 1-year warranty on the ATC spindle. That will include a 1-year warranty on the VFD box. That will include a 1-year warranty on the ATC component little box thing. You'll get a 1-year warranty on the entire kit. Now, there is one thing that will void your warranty. You need some type of drying system. Being it be the cheapest drying system you can buy from Harbor Freight that plugs into the wall that actually will pull the water out of your compressor, or if you can just get away with some water catches and descent packet system. It's really going to be entirely up to you. But if happens to be an issue with the spindle and it's determined that it's done by water damage, it's going to void the warranty on all the electronics, just because that water can get into the whole system if it is not dealt with some type of drying system. So let's talk about the ATC system and how they can be dangerous and so on. So ATC systems not set up correctly can be extremely dangerous. An ATC system set up correctly can be extremely beneficial. It can be a workhorse, and it can work flawlessly and never have any issues. But it's not set up correctly can be extremely dangerous. If you don't set up the tool racks right, you don't set up the heights right and stuff like that, you could have tools come unclamped, and they could come flying out of the spindle at 24,000 RPMs with a big giant tool holder hooked to them. So with that being said, there will be a form when you buy an ATC system from me, and you will have to sign that form stating that we are not going to be liable for any damages caused to you, your property, or anything like that, just for the fact that these things set up incorrectly can be extremely dangerous. And I just want to be upfront and honest with you guys right from the start and let you guys know that, hey, this is something that you're going to have to sign. If you don't want to sign it, or if let's say you don't sign it, then I'll reach out to you and be like, hey, we got your order, notice you need to sign this still, and if you respond saying you don't want to sign it or whatever, we'll have to send you a full refund on the ATC system. So now let's talk about the actual how long it's going to take for you to get your ATC system if you order from me. It's roughly going to be three weeks to a month and 2 weeks, and that's because everything is going to be made to order. Possibly could be faster. My manufacturer for these spindles are pretty quick, and they get them to me fairly quickly, so it actually could be sooner than that. I think on my website I say like a month and a half or something like that for my regular spindle kits, but right now my regular spindle kits are roughly 2 weeks to a week, and then you get one out. So eventually I hope to get there, but because the cost is so much on these systems, I can't really afford just to have any stock of the stuff. And then I will update you as stuff comes in and everything like that if you do decide to actually purchase a SolaFideDesigns ATC system from me. So now let's talk about the actual spindle kit, full ATC system for the Onefinity Elite, everything that you need to get going. The entire kit is going to be $3,500. I'm not entirely sure on the actual upgrade kit price yet. I need to do some more stuff and make sure, and we'll have the prices for that soon. But I also plan on doing a full-on ATC series video going through how to set up the ATC, how to set up the tool racks, how to set up the controller, how to set all that stuff up, so that way you guys know how to hook all this up. And like I said earlier, if you do buy a system from me and you need some actual support, I'll be more than happy to talk to you on the phone, do some type of video chat through you, and make sure you're up and running and everything is working correctly. If anybody's dealt with me, whether they've owned my products or not owned my products, you guys usually know how I am. I've spent a lot of hours helping people diagnose their machines and other stuff, and getting them up and going, and figuring out what was the issue and all those things. So, and that's for people who don't even own my products. So like, and people who own my products, hopefully I'll do better. So yes, if you guys buy an ATC system, I will do a video chat with you. We'll make sure you're up and going, and we can talk over the phone and get everything going. So with all of that being said, I just want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart, because without you guys, none of this would be possible. And because of you guys, I've been able to do this for a year, and we'll see how this year goes. I'm really hope this will continue and maybe grow into something bigger. So we'll see what happens. Thank you guys. God bless you all, and have a great day.